The galaxy does not remember the fallen fairly. It twists their stories, warps their intentions, and turns their choices into cautionary tales. Count Dooku is no exception. To many, he was nothing more than a traitor, a fallen Jedi who abandoned his order for power. That is what the victors wrote into history. That is the version of the story the Jedi wanted you to believe. But what if he was right? What if the Republic he turned against was as broken as he claimed? What if the Jedi he walked away from were not as wise as they pretended to be? What if the dark side was not his downfall, but his only escape? We are told that Dooku's choice was one of greed, but what if it was one of principle? What if, from his point of view, the Sith were not the greater evil? Dooku was not weak. He was not blind. He did not stumble into darkness by accident. He saw the truth of the Republic. He saw the failures of the Jedi. He saw the galaxy for what it was, and he made a choice that cost him everything, a choice that redefined him, a choice that history condemned without ever asking why he made it. The Jedi would call it betrayal. The Republic would call it treason. The Sith would call it destiny. But none of those labels capture the full truth of Count Dooku's fall. He did not seek destruction for its own sake. He did not crave chaos. He had a vision, a belief that the galaxy could be something more, something better. And to bring that vision to life, he had to tear down the illusions that had ruled for too long. In this video, we will explore the choices that led Count Dooku down the path of the Sith. We will break down the reasons behind his fall, the failures that pushed him away, and the truths that history refuses to acknowledge. This is not the story of a villain. This is the story of a man who saw what others refused to see. The Jedi Order claimed to be the pinnacle of wisdom and justice. They saw themselves as the guardians of peace, the defenders of the innocent. But what did that peace really mean? It meant obedience. It meant turning a blind eye to suffering when it did not fit their doctrine. It meant following the will of a republic that had long since lost its way. Dooku had once believed in the Jedi's teachings. He had lived by their code. He had fought in their name. But the longer he served, the more he saw the cracks in their foundation. The Jedi were not warriors, yet they sent their own to die in wars that had nothing to do with them. They preached patience, yet refused to act when injustice was right in front of them. They trained their minds to seek truth, yet ignored any truth that challenged their beliefs. He had seen noble Jedi lose themselves in service to a republic that cared nothing for them. He had watched as entire planets suffered under the weight of corruption, while the Jedi stood by and did nothing. Dooku was not the first to see the flaws in their ways. Others had questioned the council before him. Others had tried to change things. They were ignored, cast aside, dismissed as radicals. The Jedi did not change. They did not evolve. They remained trapped in their ancient ways while the galaxy passed them by. Dooku had once believed in their wisdom, but now he only saw their arrogance. The Republic was a great lie, a rotting structure held together by illusion. It called itself a democracy, but it was ruled by greed. It claimed to represent the people, yet the people had no voice. It pretended to be a force for good, but good had no place in a system where credits decided everything. Dooku had spent years fighting for the Republic, believing in its cause, but he had seen its true nature. He had seen entire systems abandoned because they were not politically convenient. He had seen senators trade lives like currency. The Republic did not care about its people. It cared about power. It cared about maintaining control. And the Jedi, whether they admitted it or not, served as its enforcers. When Dooku spoke of these problems, the Council refused to listen. They dismissed his concerns. They told him that change would come in time, that patience was the way of the Jedi. But how long were they willing to wait? How many people had to suffer before they realized the system was beyond saving? The Republic had fallen to corruption long ago, yet the Jedi still clung to the idea that it could be restored. Dooku knew better. He had seen too much. He had witnessed the rot at the heart of the Republic, and he knew it could not be fixed. It had to be destroyed. The Senate would never change. The Jedi would never act. The Republic would never heal. If the Jedi refused to see the truth, then he would find those who did. He would stand with those who had the courage to break the cycle. The Jedi taught that the dark side was unnatural, that it led only to suffering, that it consumed those who touched it. But why? Why did they fear knowledge? Why did they suppress power? Why did they teach their own to deny what was right in front of them? The Force was limitless, yet the Jedi placed limits on themselves. Dooku had been trained to resist his emotions, to suppress his anger, to ignore his desires. But was that strength? Was that wisdom? The Sith did not fear their emotions. They did not lock themselves away from power. They embraced what the Jedi refused to see. They accepted the truth that the Force was neither good nor evil. It simply was. He had spent years fighting his own instincts, denying himself in the name of the Jedi Code. But what had that achieved? What had that restraint given him? The Jedi believed in control. But all they had done was weaken themselves. They were afraid of power. They feared what they did not understand. And in that fear, they had trapped themselves in their own ignorance. The dark side was not a curse. It was a tool. A path to greater knowledge, greater strength. The Sith did not fear the truth. They did not chain themselves to ancient traditions. They adapted. They evolved. They became what the Jedi were too afraid to be. Dooku had no interest in fear. He had no interest in weakness. He would not be held back by outdated beliefs. He would seize the power that the Jedi had turned away from. There was only one Jedi Dooku ever truly believed in, Qui-Gon Jinn. He was not like the others. He did not bow to the Council's will. He questioned their decisions. He followed his own path. And for that, they shunned him. They dismissed his wisdom. They ignored his warnings. And in the end, they let him die. Qui-Gon had seen the truth about the Sith. He had uncovered the threat. He had tried to warn the Jedi, but they refused to listen. They told him he was reckless. They called him stubborn. They saw him as a problem, an inconvenience. And when he faced his final battle, they left him to fight alone. Dooku had trained Qui-Gon himself. He had shaped him into the Jedi he was meant to be. But what did that matter if the Jedi refused to see his worth? What did that mean if they let him fall without lifting a hand to save him? His death was more than a loss. It was a betrayal. A failure that the Jedi would never acknowledge. Dooku did not just mourn him. He raged. He saw his death as proof that the Jedi were beyond redemption. If they would not listen to Qui-Gon, if they would not fight for him, then they would listen to no one. They had sealed their fate with their arrogance. They had doomed themselves with their blindness, and Dooku would not follow them into that ruin. Dooku did not seek power for power's sake. He was not driven by greed or ambition. He was not like the Sith of old, lost in destruction and chaos. He sought something greater, a new order, a true balance, a future free from the corruption of the Republic and the stagnation of the Jedi. Sidious had shown him a different path, a vision of a galaxy no longer bound by the failures of the past. It was not about revenge. It was not about hatred. It was about tearing down what was broken so that something greater could rise in its place. The Republic was a disease. The Jedi were its willing enablers. If they would not change, then they would fall. Dooku believed in that vision. He believed in the need for strength, the need for control. The weak had been ruled by the corrupt for too long. Justice had been nothing more than a word spoken by those who did not understand its meaning. He would change that. He would see the galaxy reshaped into something better. And if that meant war, then so be it. The Jedi saw it as treason. The Republic called it rebellion. But Dooku knew what it really was. It was the future. It was the only path forward. The galaxy could not be saved by those who refused to see the truth. It could only be saved by those willing to make the hard choices. And Dooku had already made his choice. Dooku was not the monster the Jedi painted him to be. He was not a mindless servant of the dark side. He was a man who saw the truth and acted on it. A man who had been betrayed by those he once trusted. A man who had lost faith in a system that had failed everyone. He did not turn to the Sith out of hatred. He did not seek war for the sake of destruction. He did what he believed was right. He made the choices the Jedi were too afraid to make. He accepted the truth they refused to see. And for that they called him a traitor. The Jedi thought him lost. The Republic thought him dangerous. The Sith thought him useful. But in the end, Dooku was his own man. He walked his own path. He followed his own vision. And though he fell, though his story ended in betrayal, he never lost sight of the truth. Because in the end, he had been right all along.